Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. If you're new to the show, please smash that subscribe button. Also, consider becoming a YouTube member, a Patreon, or donate small amounts in the link given in the description box. That really helps us. But the least you can do is to like this video and watch it. Without further ado, let me welcome our guest today, Larry C. Johnson. Larry is an American blogger, political commentator, and former analyst at the Central Intelligence Agency. Larry, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As we speak, Iran launches missile at Israel as a retaliation for the Israeli attack on hundreds of sites in Iran last night. What do you think is the implication of the Israeli attack on Iran?
Well, it's a start of a regional war that could very well escalate into a global war. Um, I think it's incumbent upon the major countries. I'm excluding the United States because the United States is complicit in this act of murder by Israel. It was an unprovoked attack, but the United States has a track record of doing the same thing, just like we attacked Saddam Hussein in 2003. Made up a a lie about weapons of mass destruction and then attacked him. That is exactly what Israel did this time with the assistance of the United States and the Europeans, especially Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Um, they claimed that Iran was violating the Non-Proliferation Treaty, put out a report that was, frankly, just manufactured to create casus belli. And then Israel launches the attack, claiming, oh, it's defending itself. You know, the only country in the world that believes that when they just go out and start bombing civilians, that's called self-defense. It's absurd. So uh, Iran didn't waste any time. They have retaliated within about less than 24 hours, and they've hit Israel and Tel Aviv and other sites throughout Israel. The Israeli government's going to great lengths to cover that up and pretend, oh, nothing happened here. And yet they're saying, oh my God, Iran has now crossed the red line, so they're going to retaliate again. And we'll see that if, uh, you know, whether Iranian air defense is going to be more effective on this next go round. It will shoot down Israeli jets. There are already reports that they did down at least one jet and have taken one Israeli pilot, a female, as captive. So we'll see if any more of that occurs.
Can you speak a little bit more about the involvement of the United States? Because right after the first round of attacks on Iran, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, came out and said that the United States is not involved. But now, as we're getting more reports, we heard President Trump saying that this was an excellent attack. We also have very detailed reports about uh, fleets being moved to the Mediterranean, F5, F-15 or 16 squadron in Jordan being asked to intercept Iranian missiles. And it's very clear that the United States would be participating in all ways and means in this attack against Iran.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
could tell us a little bit about where the United States stands in this war.
Oh, the United States is directly complicit. You know, the Trump's been playing this game, that he's some ignorant guy. Just God, I don't know what's going on. These things keep happening. They're not telling me about it. Just as he claimed to be ignorant about the attacks in Russia that took place 2 weeks ago. It's just lies on his part. Because, and he exposed himself this morning in a comment to the New York Post, an American newspaper, where he said, oh, I knew the precise date that Israel was going to strike. I know everything. Well, when you know everything, that means you're in a position to stop it. The United States has the power because of the control over finances and military weapons being supplied to Israel that we could stop it. Well, he chose not to stop it. He chose to allow it to go forward. I don't know in his addled brain if he thinks that this is somehow going to encourage Iran to come to the negotiating table. I think he's intimated that that's sort of his thinking, which is crazy. But this was you had U.S. military commander for Central Command, Kurilla, General Kurilla, had been making several trips along with other members of his planning staff to Israel over the last 2 months. So the United States participated in extensive planning with Israel, in my view, for this operation, and that included providing intelligence support as well as providing weapon systems as well as providing cyber warfare operations to try to disrupt Iran's ability to detect and respond to an attack.
There seemed to be a section within the Republican movement. I was never sure about its position, but at least there was an impression that there was a segment within the American conservative movement that was against war in general. And as we are seeing the debates about Iran and Israel in the US Congress, it seems that most Republicans, including Roger Wicker, a Republican who chairs the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee, they are ecstatic about United States and Israel attacking Iran because they think it's the evil empire. And if anything, there
Yeah,
are some Democrats who are against it, and they are against it perhaps because they see it as instability rather than a categorical rejection of war. Um, what has happened to this conservative movement, which apparently said that they are against war?
been like so, but just like happened in 2003 with the war in Iraq. Uh, Trump promised to be a president of peace, promised to keep us out of these needless wars, and then he, pushed the lie that Iran was building a nuke and that we had to stop them, and that Israel is being allowed to stop them. It's just, it's a pernicious lie, but it's become the truth. It's accepted widely as the truth in the United States now, and it is justification for Israel doing this. Uh, Hopefully, the rest of the world is not that stupid.
The rest of the West, led by Britain, France, and Germany, they came out and said that Israel has a right to self-defense.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
hard for the rest of the world to understand what this right to self-defense is when Israel is attacking Iran. Uh, what is your sense of what this lunacy is?
This is this financial over all of Iran's resources. This is about regime change. The statements by France, Germany, and the United Kingdom are evidence that this was a coordinated, planned intelligence military operation. They're not reacting to events, they were helping set the stage for these events. And until such time as those countries are punished and suffer severe economic consequences for their continued colonial meddling around the world, this will continue. India could be next. China is certainly on the menu. Russia stands at its on the menu. The West is like a group of ravenous locusts descending upon a cornfield, wanting to consume it all for its own appetite. It is genuine evil on the part of my country.
What is your sense of the extent to which Russia and China would come to the support of Iran if things keep going on, or if things keep spiraling on, and the United States and the West commits itself to participate on the side of Israel? Where would Russia and China, how active would they be?
Well, they have the potential to be very active, but I think both are very, very um, reluctant to take actions that could escalate this conflict beyond uh, the Israel and Iran at this time. However, In the event that Israel ups the ante and decides to use something like nuclear weapons, then all of a sudden I think we're going to be in an entirely new world. I think Israel is making a good case for its opponents in the world why Israel should not exist. Uh, if you would have gone back 3, 4 years ago, you'd find that there's actually not a lot of support among at least the mainstream countries for that proposition. But now I think you're starting to see a definite turn. And candidly, given the substantial, significant Muslim populations in both the UK, France, and Germany, just from a popular support standpoint, I could see the government policy at some point being forced to reject support for Israel and provide a united front against Israel.
It took a long time, even in the case of Palestine. I mean, only recently we've seen some condemnation about the blockade after
Yeah.
maybe 2 years of this genocide. I'm not sure if the government would be pressurized to turn against Israeli action against Iran, because there, I think the propaganda is, at least for now, much more effective than in the case of Palestine, which is a very direct case of genocide.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is, um, the images on social media of dead children and starving children are having an impact. They can't, efforts by the Israeli government to cover it up have failed. And the global South is emerging as a power that's going to have to be taken into account. Heretofore, they were, they get patted, you pat them on the head. Nice little brown people. Go on, bring us our drinks and serve us. This colonial racist nonsense that's gone on for far too long.
Could you talk a little bit about the scale of the damage that was caused by Israel? Because there are so many reports about attacks on hundreds of sites, attacks on nuclear uh, sites, but also on ballistic missiles and drone infrastructures and so on. Eliza McNear spoke to Al Jazeera and said that the elimination of so many leadership would be would take a little bit of time to be replaced for Iran. If you could give us your sense of how deep uh, was this damage for Iran?
Oh, well, we'll have to wait on the physical damage. I don't think it's as significant as these initial reports have claimed. I think it's a lot of that's in the same category as the drone attack that took place on June 1st in Russia against initially we were told 5 airfields, and Ukraine was saying, "Oh, we blew up 41 aircraft," and the media was reporting it. It turned out not true. Only two of the 5 airfields were hit, and apparently only 7 aircraft were damaged or destroyed, not 41. And the ones that at least half of those that were destroyed uh, were inactive and operative aircraft. They weren't even, part of the fleet. So the physical damage that, clearly there has been physical damage done in Iran. We'll have to wait and see. But by the same token, Iran in its retaliation within the last 2 hours has inflicted some significant damage in Israel. Reportedly, 9 buildings have been destroyed, and they're saying dozens, if not hundreds, have been damaged. So just in this latest attack, uh, the assassination of these military officers and the nuclear scientists, um, Israel's been doing this. Oh, good God, they've been doing it for 2,000 plus years. Remember, they demanded the execution of Jesus. Execute him. That'll solve the problem. A movement known as Christianity. Uh, they've been killing leaders of Hamas dating back to Sheikh Yassin, an elderly gentleman confined to a wheelchair. They ultimately killed him. That'll stop Hamas. Didn't stop Hamas. They killed Sinwar last year. Has not stopped Hamas. Hamas continues to grow in strength, in fact. Hezbollah, they killed Nasrallah. And what did it accomplish? Uh, Nasrallah was a great man, but he was not irreplaceable. So, new officers have taken the position. This is not a one man terrorist movement in Iran, despite how the West likes to portray it. Iran is an organic entity. It's a complex entity and capable people. So Israel does not, even if Israel uses a nuke, it doesn't have the to destroy Iran as a culture, as a civilization. This is all about a desperate Western attempt to force regime change. And I think Iran understands the game. And hopefully the rest of the global South comes to that conclusion as well. Because, if countries like Jordan and like Turkey, they're great enablers of Israel. Saudis as well, frankly, as well as Qatar. So you've got the Arab and Muslim world in particular need to stand strongly together and oppose Israel. And then you would, potentially bring an end to this. But for right now, this war between Iran and Israel, it's escalating.
The Saudis, Emiratis, and Qatar have come out and condemned this Israeli blatant escalation. I interviewed Professor Mohammad Marandi and asked him about the response of these Gulf states, and he said that eventually they would side with the United States. I wonder what your sense about these states are insofar as this conflict is concerned.
They're prostitutes. Okay, that's it. They accept cash for services. They have, they because they have a lot of money, they get treated like royalty and pretend to be royalty. But they're in my view, they give lip service to Islam. They're not bona fide Muslims that actually abide by the teachings of Islam. It's a convenient label. So their talk is cheap. It's going to be action. If these countries begin cutting off diplomatic ties with Israel, ending oil supplies to Israel, make Israel a genuine pariah, and to tell the United States, until you stop Israel, we're not gonna give you the $1 trillion we promised. You got to get Trump's attention on this. But, they prefer to party it up with Donald.
Insofar as the objective of the Israeli regime is concerned, its national security advisor, Jaisi Hanegbi, said that it's it's unlikely for Israel to eliminate Iran's capability of having weapons by this military campaign. And by that measure, he said that it's ultimately to pressurize Iran to concede more uh, during these deal talks with under the leadership of the United States. But what this campaign seems to be doing is that these deal talks are effectively closed. So,
Hmm.
do you think this campaign was to pressurize Iran to concede more within these negotiations, or do you think, as you have suggested, is this is ultimately about regime change?
Oh, there's no other way to look at it. This is only about regime change. The negotiations are just a ploy. Uh, this is about trying to, the West they want control over Iran and its resources. This goes back well over 70 years to the time of Mossadegh when he was forced from office. The legitimate president the legitimate leader of Iran at the time, simply because the oil companies wanted to control the oil. And that's still what it's all about. Get control of Iran's oil. Also control Iran's territory so that Russia can no longer use it as a transit point, go from north to south and south to north, and as well as to ultimately go after China. The Western hegemon is incapable of living in peace with the rest of the world. It will either it's going to dominate and control through military force or economic power or some combination of the two. And anyone that tries to get in its way, it will try to destroy. And people better wake the hell up. That's what's going on.
I wonder, what do you think would be the impact of this escalation on Palestine itself would be? Because in so many ways, the hostility for
Mhm.
Iran is not just about the forms of government within Iran, but it's also the kind of support that Iran lends to the axis of resistance. And Netanyahu, of course, claims that this would weaken or dismantle the axis of resistance, which would eventually allow him to ethnically cleanse Gaza. But what do you think would be the impact of this escalation on Palestine itself?
Well, it's actually, I think it's going to buy the Palestinians some time. It's Israel does not have unlimited capability. And while it's busy with its Air Force dropping bombs in Iran, that means they're not dropping bombs in Gaza. So it is buying the Palestinian people some respite. How long that will last, I don't know. Um, right now, Israel foolishly thinks it can go now toe to toe with Iran indefinitely. I don't think they can. And I think one of the ways that countries like China, Russia, North Korea, even Pakistan, they may not publicly make a public show of providing aid and assistance to Israel, but I mean to Iran, but they are going to be supplying Iran. Iran will be getting resupplied in significant ways from those countries at a minimum.
And do you think Hamas, who was still trying to negotiate despite all the betrayals, despite all the killings that are continuing, having seen this, that on one hand, the United States and Iran were trying to talk and make a deal, on the other hand, they bomb it.
Yeah.
Would that also mean that the talks are over, not just for Iran and the United States, but talks are also effectively over for Hamas and Israel?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think Israel's going to try to. If they believe that if they destroy Iran, then that will collapse all support for Hezbollah and Hamas. Just the arrogance of these Zionists is staggering, and they believe their own lies. So, um, Hamas. Uh, Hamas is, I think, finally come to the realization that not the United States can't be trusted to mediate. We'll see what, again, at some point, countries, if the domestic populations in Egypt and Jordan, if they finally decide to throw out their leadership, you know, King Abdullah of Jordan has proven himself just to be a house slave of America, you know. And the same, frankly, for General Sisi in Egypt. They're just, they get money, they get paid off, and to sit down and shut up. At some point, I think the Egyptian people could rise up and say, "We've had enough of this. We want an independent leader. We don't want to be beholden or controlled by the United States."
Would you place Turkey in the league of China, Russia, Pakistan that you described, or would you place Turkey in the league of Jordan, Egypt, and the Gulf monarchs?
Jordan, Egypt, and the Gulf monarchs. Turkey, Erdogan is a disgrace. He has he wants he pretends he wants to be that he's a grand man in charge of a grand project, but he he constantly playing one side against the other. So there's no loyalty with him. He's not a trustworthy character, in my view.
Do you think Netanyahu would be successful in dragging the United States deep into this conflict, or do you think the self-interest driven Americans would at some point in time say that, well, this is enough, probably we'll have to find a middle ground out of this?
That's only going to happen when Bibi Netanyahu is tossed from office and the Zionist elements represented by Ben Gvir and Smotrich are gone. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Finally, if you could give us a sense of, I've been following your Substack, so you are effectively in the media. If you could give us a sense of the Western media's coverage of this conflict, that would be a great end of this
Oh yeah,
conversation.
well, it's real easy. Israel is winning. They're conquering. They're killing Iran. Iran is weak. It's being destroyed. It has to give up. You know, there's no attempt at any kind of objective reporting. And Iran's a terrorist nation. Iran is engaged with killing and raping women and beheading babies. They're behind all that in Gaza. I mean, it's a constant flood of propaganda. There is no objective analysis in much in the mainstream Western media. It's entirely twisted against Iran. What's been really sort of sad about Iran is they've been pretty naive in my view. They believed that, geez, if we just play by the rules, if we just follow this international order, they'll let us sit at the table and get something to eat. The West has zero interest in letting Iran, as it's currently constituted, anywhere near the dinner table. That's why it's destroy the regime, force regime change, and it's not just Iran. Iran's not the central. It's not the end game here. Iran is simply a tool. It's a playing piece like a chess piece. Instead of being a pawn, though, it's more like a knight. It's an important piece, but it's not the critical piece for checking and causing checkmate with Russia and China.
Would this have any impact or bearing on whatever is going on between the United States and Russia insofar as the negotiations over Ukraine are concerned?
Hmm. Oh, should. I mean, Trump has been now caught in a lie in the last 36, 48 hours. First, he denied any knowledge of this. Oh boy, we told Ukraine not to do it. We told them to stand down, give peace a chance, all that nonsense. Then he's out today saying, "Oh no, no, I knew the date they were going to hit. I know everything." Well, if he knew everything, he was in a position to stop it, and he didn't stop it. And the fact that he knew everything. I think the Russians are listening to that going, he told us that he didn't know a thing about those attacks, and I guarantee you he did. So I think if Putin and his negotiators have a lick of sense, they're going to recognize they can't trust Trump. It's sort of a fool's errand.
We'll leave it there. Larry, thank you so much for your insightful commentary.
Yes, sir. Hopefully we have better news next week to talk about.
Sure. Have a wonderful rest of the day ahead. Take care.
Great. Thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.